Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the iPhone 12 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro have quite a few differences, but quite a few similarities as well. I wanted to help you decide if maybe you should upgrade to an iPhone 12 Pro or upgrade from a 12 Pro to a 14 Pro or any other phone. So we'll compare them, talk about what's different, and what reasons you may want to consider upgrading. Now, the iPhone 12 Pro is not sold new by Apple anymore. Apple doesn't sell it in their store, they only sell it refurbished, and it's around $800. However, it's much less if you find it through carriers or used. So it comes in 128, 256, and 512GB models. The 14 Pro, being that it's newer, starts at $999 and goes up to $1499. It's got 128, 256, 512, and a 1TB option. So if you need that extra storage, the 14 Pro is the way to go. However, I don't know anyone that really needs a terabyte in regular everyday use. It's pretty rare that you come across those people. Now with the 12 Pro, we had a new color. We had Pacific Blue. This is the silver color, but we had a Pacific Blue color as well as graphite. With the 14 Pro, we get a new deep purple that I have here as well as space black. Now, one of the major differences between both of these phones is the overall weight and size. So the weight between both of them is definitely significant, as the 14 Pro is not only thicker, but it's also heavier overall thanks to that camera bump on the back. The 12 Pro is 6.66 ounces or 189 grams, where the 14 Pro is 7.27 ounces or 206 grams. So it's actually a little bit narrower with the 14 Pro than the 12 Pro, but it's definitely heavier because of that camera bump. There's a significant difference in the overall feel, and in the hand, the 12 Pro just feels a little bit nicer because it's lighter and easier to hold that way and balanced a little bit better. Also in the US, there's no SIM tray on the 14 Pro. You can see we have the millimeter wave antenna, and we also have a SIM card tray on the 12 Pro, but no SIM card tray on the 14 Pro in the US. Outside the US, you'll have that though. Now, of course, one of the obvious differences right away is the display. You can see we have the older, larger notch on the iPhone 12 Pro as opposed to the new dynamic island on the 14 Pro. And with the dynamic island comes some extra functionality, and we're not going to cover too much of that as it's more of notifications. And if we go in and maybe play a song here, let me just turn the volume down, play a song, swipe home, it goes into the dynamic island. Press and hold, it opens up, you've got your media player. They've just moved things around and made it a little nicer to have notifications there. If we close out of music, go back home, it goes away, the dynamic island shrinks. Some people really like this, some don't, but on both phones we have a 6.1-inch display. The 12 Pro is 2,532 by 1,170 pixels at 460 pixels per inch. It goes up to 800 nits of normal brightness and 1,200 nits in HDR. Where the 14 Pro Max is a huge leap when it comes to the overall display. It's 2,556 by 1,179 at again 460 pixels per inch. But it has 120 Hz ProMotion, so it's super smooth as you're scrolling. It has an always-on display. As I turn off the display, you'll see it goes to the lock screen and it's always on. And you can disable this, of course, but it's something that's a feature and you may really like. It also has 1,000 nits in normal brightness, so it's up 200 nits just in normal brightness, 1,600 nits in HDR, and 2,000 nits outside. So outdoor, it's double the brightness, or more than double the brightness, just being outside. It's much easier to see the 14 Pro if you're in a very bright environment. But both of them have great viewing angles. There's not really an issue there, but there's definitely a difference in overall usability and sort of smoothness and brightness overall. The 14 Pro is a big leap there. Now, both phones have great cameras. However, the 12 Pro has the older camera that's a 12 megapixel f2.2. They carried that along for quite some time. However, the 14 Pro has been upgraded with a 12 megapixel f1.9 that now has autofocus, so it's much better with regular video and photos. It also has the photonic engine, photographic styles, cinematic mode, and ProRes video. I'll show you that in a moment. The rear cameras are also a huge upgrade with the 14 Pro, and they ought to be with the giant camera bump. You'll see it's much thicker as far as the camera bump is concerned. The overall difference is just dramatic there with the size of the camera bump, but that's to make room for all new sensors and lenses. So on the 12 Pro, we have a triple 12 megapixel camera setup with a main f1.6 aperture, an ultra-wide f2.4, and a telephoto f2.0. It has a 2x optical zoom. With the 14 Pro, we have an all-new 48 48 megapixel main camera at f1.78, an ultra-wide f2.2, and a telephoto f2.8 that goes to 2 times and 3 times optical zoom by punching into the sensor, and still, because there's so many megapixels, it still retains the overall quality and is optical zoom. We also have the same things I mentioned with the forward-facing camera, such as the photonic engine, and then we also have things such as photographic styles, if you want to use those, where you can change the tonality of the photos overall. We also have ProRes video, so if we get out of this, we go back into our video, you'll see we have ProRes, we have a new action mode to help with stabilization, and we also have the option for macro mode. As we get close, you'll see it jumps to macro, we back up, it will come out of macro typically. There we go. Go back close again. It jumps to macro, and we can get really close to different objects, both in photo and video on this phone. We also have cinematic mode, which we had with the 13 Pro, but they've improved with 4K video. So a lot of different things on the 14 Pro compared to the 12 Pro. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what some of the photos and videos look like out of both of these so we can see which one looks best to you. And so here's the iPhone 14 Pro forward-facing camera that now has autofocus, as you can see here, so it should keep up as far as the overall focus compared to the iPhone 12 Pro. Also, here's the iPhone 12 Pro microphone. So now you can hear the microphone from the 12 Pro, and it shouldn't be as good in theory, but you may not notice a difference. So let me know which one you think sounds best and looks best in the comments below. We also have cinematic mode on the iPhone 14 Pro. And here's cinematic mode with the iPhone 14 Pro. The 12 Pro doesn't have it, but we have up to 4K 30 on the 14 Pro with cinematic mode this year. And it just blurs the background, but some of the fuzzing around where my hairline isn't that great, but it gives you an idea of what it can do, and it's great that we have it. When it comes to the overall speed and regular use with both devices, the 14 Pro is 2 years ahead, but isn't that big of a difference with regular use. The 12 Pro has an A14 Bionic with 6GB of RAM and a 4-core GPU. The 14 Pro has an A16 Bionic with 6GB of RAM still and a 5-core CPU. Now there will be some differences if you're just running benchmarks, and I can show you that here, but that's not really indicative of regular use every day. So you'll see on the 12 Pro I had 1,579 for single core, on the 14 Pro 1,887. Multi-core 4023 on the 12 Pro and 5401 on the 14 Pro. So based off those numbers, you would think that there'd be a slight increase, and with certain things there are. If you're taking photos and it's calculating different things in the background, trying to make the best photo happen with 48 megapixels, well then the 14 Pro is definitely going to be better there and faster. However, in regular use, if we just open up something like music, we go to the listen option here and scroll, you'll see things are quite fast. Go to the library. Things are very, very similar with regular use. If we go over and maybe load an app, whether that be a game or a regular app, you're not going to see a gigantic difference. You will see some difference, but maybe not as big as you might think. So if we hit play, We'll hit create new, we'll hit create new world, and then we'll hit create. And we'll give it just a moment and see how long it takes. So we'll hit proceed on the 12 Pro, give it just a moment here. And I would expect it to take a little bit longer, but not hugely longer. You'll see it's almost done here. There we go. And we're in. So there is going to be a difference, but once you're playing the game, smoothness and everything else shouldn't be too different unless you're in a very intense game, whether that's maybe Call of Duty or something else that's maybe recently updated. So as we scroll through, you'll see how smooth it is on the 12 Pro, and you can expect the same on the 14 Pro. Really no difference there whatsoever with the overall usability on both devices. You can see the smoothness overall as we're walking through. So really no difference there. Even exporting video and things like that, you're not going to see a huge difference with regular use. If you need to quickly open the camera, you'll see we're in and they're in at the same time. Snap a photo, you'll see they're both quick. We can go into the photo, go to edit, and if we go to edit here, we'll just have it automatically edit that. You'll see they're both pretty much instant. So regular adjustments, changes with photos, with video and more is just super fast on both. The Apple processors or their own silicon has been crazy fast for years, and you will notice some differences with intense tasks, but they both have the same amount of RAM, and most people don't notice too big of a difference. My wife originally upgraded from an iPhone 10 to this iPhone 12 Pro. She noticed a huge difference then. When she upgraded from the 12 Pro to the 14 Pro, I actually asked her about this, and she said, maybe I notice a difference. She liked the screen better, she liked the cameras better, but other than that, she didn't see much of a difference. However, with battery life, you will see a difference. With the 12 Pro, we have a 2,815 milliamp hour battery that Apple says is good for 17 hours of video playback, 11 hours of video playback streamed, and 65 hours of continuous music. The 14 Pro has a larger 3,200 milliamp hour battery, 23 hours of video playback, 20 hours streamed of video playback, and 75 hours of music playback. So with regular everyday use, I would expect you to get at least a few hours more on the 14 Pro with regular use. That's typically what I see from most people with regular use on both devices. My wife, after using this for 2 years, if we go to battery health, you'll see it's at 90% after 2 years, just charging it every single night. They both charge the same, about 50% in 30 minutes, and they both have MagSafe. So you'll see this hasn't been used in a while since the 14 Pro's been out a little while. But with regular use, you can expect definitely more time on the 14 Pro just because it has a larger battery and a more efficient 4nm processor. So because of those two things combined, you will get some extra battery life, especially when streaming video. So that will make a big difference. When it comes to cellular, Wi-Fi, and things like 5G, well, they both technically have 5G, but the newer iPhone 14 Pro has updated modems and seems to be a little bit better and faster in most of my tests. Most of the time, though, with regular phone calls, I didn't notice a difference. Whether that's just taking phone calls, using internet, checking speeds with things, it was basically the same. So as far as cellular connectivity, 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi, they both have Wi-Fi 6. There's not really a difference there. We do have a slight difference in Bluetooth versions though, but so far we haven't seen any advantage on the 14 Pro from that. Now, as far as the speakers are concerned, there's something that I thought was a bit surprising. This was my wife's iPhone 12 Pro, and when I upgraded her to a 14 Pro, she actually immediately said the speakers don't sound as good. So they do have a slightly different sound. So I wanted you to hear that as well. You can see they're in different locations. The dynamic island has it above it and in the very top notch of the display, where on the 12 Pro, it's within the notch itself for the top speaker. The bottom speakers are basically the exact same. So let me go ahead and move my microphone so you can hear what they sound like. The IP rating or water resistance is identical on both of them, IP68. And also, one thing that's new on the 14 Pro, but that has yet to be enabled, at least at the time of this video, is satellite connectivity, where when you're in an SOS mode, you don't have a SIM card, or maybe you're outside of signal, you'll be able to use satellites to connect and get some help if you need it. So that's something that's coming later with an update, maybe by the time you're watching this. You also have an all-new emergency SOS crash detection in the 14 series phones. So if you were unfortunately in an accident, it should detect that and ask you to call emergency services. If you don't respond, it will call, give them your location, and help send some people to help you out. And so between both of them, though, they both will run the latest software and both will be supported for years. Since the 12 Pro is only a couple years old, you can expect years and years of support. So depending on what version you're on, you'll see here, if we go back, whether you're on a beta version, you're on iOS 16, iOS 15.7, you'll see some glitches there for whatever reason, 15.7.1, 16.2, you'll have support for years, and I would expect the iPhone 12 Pro to get updates for probably the next 3 to 4 years. So I really wouldn't worry about that too much. And then you'll get security updates after that, just no new features. So that's something we've been seeing for years, at least 5 years of support. We've got at least 3 years left, maybe more. With the 14 Pro being as new as it is, well, you'll have at least 5 years from now at this point, or 4 years, depending on when you purchase it. Now, if you're trying to decide which one is best for you, it comes down to a few factors. Price, of course. If you can get the 12 Pro for a big discount or even free through a carrier deal, or maybe used or as a pass-down phone, then definitely do that. However, if they were the same price, I would go for the 14 Pro. Again, the same is true if you care about cameras, go for the 14 Pro. They're a huge upgrade. However, if you don't care about that, well, then look at the displays. The display definitely goes a lot brighter. If you're outdoors a lot, the 14 Pro is going to be easier to read or look at. If you don't care about that, again, the 12 Pro is a great option. So let me know which one would be best for you. I think they're both pretty equal in many different ways. You may not like the notch, so you go with the dynamic island. Or you may not like the dynamic island, so you go with the notch. Either one is fine. They both have similar features. They both will get upgrades for years, and both of them work great. So let me know which one you think is best in the comments below. Are you sticking with your 12 Pro, upgrading to a 12 Pro, or have you already upgraded to maybe a 14 Pro? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.